On a frozen street in Minneapolis, with snow just relentlessly coming down, a single gunshot kicks off a crisis that spirals all the way to the halls of power in Washington. This isn't just the story of a confrontation. No, it's the anatomy of a complete breakdown. So, let's break down exactly what happened.
All right, so the shot that echoed across the country, it didn't just come out of nowhere. To really get it, you have to understand the chill that had already settled over the city. Trust between the community and federal agents was, well, it was shattered. And that's because of another fatal shooting just a few weeks earlier, where, you guessed it, self-defense was the official story. The air was thick with suspicion and resentment. So when you look at the timeline, you can see these two events on a collision course. First, you've got the death of Renee Nicole Good, which was still a really raw, open wound in the community. Then you have the arrival of ICE and Border Patrol agents for something called Operation Title VIII, a high-stakes mission to arrest a fugitive. It's like two volatile forces heading straight for each other right in the middle of a frozen city. And this right here is the core of the fracture. You see, from the government's perspective, this was a surgical mission to take down dangerous criminals. But for the people on the streets, seeing these heavily armed, masked agents in their neighborhoods, it felt like an occupying force. There was just no middle ground between these two realities. Okay, now we're moving to the epicenter of the chaos. We're going to break down, second by second, the chain of events that ended with the death of Alex Pretty. So, who was Alex Pretty? Well, he wasn't some kind of activist. He was a 37-year-old ICU nurse at a VA hospital. Think about that. A guy whose entire job, his entire life, was dedicated to preserving life. And that's the man who found himself right in the middle of this confrontation. It all went down in a violent flash. We're talking 4 seconds. Video shows an agent shoving a woman. Pretty steps in between them. Instantly, he's blinded with pepper spray. And in the next moment, a swarm of at least 6 officers takes him to the ground. It was just an explosion of force, a chaotic blur in the snow. And this is where the truth just splits right down the middle. The narrative fractures into 2 completely irreconcilable versions. You have the official story, and then you have what videos and eyewitnesses seem to show. So the crucial question, the moment that everything hinges on, is this. What exactly happened in the seconds leading up to that fatal shot? Okay, so the Department of Homeland Security claims that when they discovered Pretty's 9mm pistol, he reacted violently, forcing an agent to shoot to save his own life. But video analysis and witness testimony, they paint a totally different picture. They say Pretty was already subdued, on his knees with his hands on his head. His gun, they claim, had already been taken when another officer shot him in the back. And there's this one legal fact that changes everything. See, Minnesota is an open carry state. Alex Pretty had a valid permit. He was armed legally. This fact directly challenges the official narrative that just having the gun on him was an immediate threat that justified using deadly force. Pretty's death didn't bring silence. Far from it. The anger didn't just fade away. It focused, like a laser on a single spot on the city's frozen map, the Home 2 Suites Hotel, which had become an impromptu bunker for the federal agents. And the scene was just brutal. We're talking -5 degrees Celsius, snow coming down hard. The cold itself felt like another character in this drama, a constant reminder of how harsh this situation was. This wasn't just a protest, it was a siege in a freezer. And the crowd just grew. And grew. Soon, more than 1,000 people were surrounding that hotel. The outrage was instant and massive, turning the building into a fortress under siege by its own citizens. Now, from the inside, looking out those hotel windows, the federal commander in charge, Marcus Charles, he described the scene with just one word: anarchy. For the agents trapped inside, they felt like they were surrounded by a violent mob. And the violence became visceral. In the middle of all that chaos, a special ICE agent was tackled to the ground. During the struggle, a protester bit his hand and tore off part of his finger, leaving the agent permanently maimed. It was an act of shocking brutality that just shows you the extreme level of tension and the very real danger on the ground. The shockwave from that single gunshot didn't stop at the Minneapolis city limits. No. It spread fast, ripping open a deep political fracture between the city, the state, and the entire nation. Minnesota's governor, Tim Walz, he basically framed this in existential terms. He asked, are we on the side of an all-powerful federal government or on the side of a nurse who died bearing witness to it? I mean, that's a question about the very soul of his state.
Even the local police were sounding the alarm. The Minneapolis police chief himself, Brian O'Hara, came out and said the situation was unsustainable. That's a huge admission, right? It was basically him saying that the relationship between local and federal law enforcement had completely broken down.
And on the national level, the condemnation was even sharper. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar didn't mince words, calling it state-sanctioned violence. Just like that, a local tragedy had officially become a full-blown national political crisis.
And then came the biggest consequence of all. In Washington, D.C., Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced the ultimate threat. Democrats would block funding for the entire Department of Homeland Security. Think about that. A single shooting on a street in Minneapolis was now threatening to shut down one of the most powerful agencies in the U.S. government.
So here's what we're left with. A nurse is dead, an agent is maimed, and a country is divided, all of it revolving around just a few seconds of chaos in the snow. And it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. When the official story and the visual evidence are in direct opposition